would still adopt a car.
Okay, fucking.
Can I help you? Motherfucker, what did I do to you? Huh?
What movie does the clapping with the fucking, what is that?
Fuck if I know. Welcome back to Sincerely Japan.
I've never seen a chase run like this in my life! Oh my God! A textbook head-to-head battle!
Welcome to Sincerely Japan, the drifting podcast.
This is episode 21, 21.2, we'll say. I think I'm going to get like 4 interviews out of this, maybe.
Hell yeah.
So I'm here with Quan, who was in episode 5. He was in episode 18, I think.
I've lost track.
Yeah, so Quan, obviously you guys should be familiar with by now. We got Calvert over here. He was also in Misaba with us. He drives an FD RX-7 that's pretty sick and also not running like most of our cars.
Whoop, whoop.
And then we've got Evan Kirstein over here, who's a friend of the podcast, and he is also, he's got a Mark III Supra. He's got Miatas out the ass. Also, none of them running. So collectively, we have one running car, which is Quan's.
Yeah, perfect. It runs.
Hold it closer to your mouth. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, but yes, it does.
Hi. Ooh, so juicy now.
Hey, guys.
All right, so we're out here. We are at Knuckle Up in Houston, Texas, just outside of Houston, Texas.
Whoop, whoop.
And we're just here to hang out. We made a whole trek here. Quan came very early because he didn't want to ride with the rest of us.
You were on CP time, so I don't want to hear it.
I don't even know what that means. You keep saying, what is CP time?
Color people time, buddy.
Damn, color people time. I'm on color people time. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to get canceled. Shit. I was about to be like, yes, finally.
I have made it.
I've made it. Mama, look. Anyways. Jesus. I'm not going to entertain that anymore.
I can give you a car later.
We had this idea of, hey, let's go to a drift event, and then it was, hey, let's go to a drift event and do a podcast. And so we set up a tent. It's so unofficial looking too.
It looks awesome. I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah, and so we're just out here. But I do want to talk on the fact that Quan texted me this morning. He said, "Hey, dog, do you need me to bring anything?"
Okay.
And I specifically was like headphones. You know what I mean? Like we got to be able to hear each other because cars are gonna start running. It's quiet now. It's not. There they go.
There we go.
Look at the timing of that.
Doo-doo.
And so we knew cars were going to be going, and it's, I was like, dog, just bring headphones. And then he texts me like an hour and a half later, and he goes, hey, I brought my AirPods.
Okay, so to my clarification, what had happened was we recorded podcast, 18, whatever we were with Donnie. We had the Zoom meeting or the Teams meeting, whatever it was, and had the AirPods in. So I thought we were going to do something like that. So that was like, okay, cool.
Were you going to call into the podcast that you're here for?
Yeah. We did the same thing anyway.
You're about to be across the parking lot like, hey, what's up, guys?
Follow my boy.
You're just going to be like, look, it's Inception.
Follow me, bro.
Yeah, he's going to be in the podcast just yourself.
Putting filters on it.
Man, Houston's too humid, bro. I'm sweating, dog. I'm straight up sweating. It's humid here.
I feel like your glasses are fogging up too, buddy.
Welcome to Houston.
They be fogging. I'm gonna keep them on too. I don't give a fog, bro.
You're not used to the air being wet?
I'm not. I prefer my air like hella dry.
You were in Japan for 3 years?
Damn, you deep throwing the mic, dog.
You like it.
Not right now. Later. I like it later.
Jeez.
Like I thought it was as humid in Japan as it was here now.
Dude, Japan is a different animal. Japan should not have counted as humid.
Be happy you're not in Okinawa because that was where the real humidity kicked off at.
That's true. Yeah. And you, I feel like, know that better than anybody.
No cap.
No cap. Anyways, so it went from like, hey, we're gonna come to this drift event just to hang out and see our friends in Houston, and then it was like Darius and I talking like, hey, should we do a whole episode while you're there? And I was like, maybe. I don't hate that idea. And then I posted a story. So if you follow us on Instagram, you probably saw the story. Knuckle Up reposted it, and then a bunch of cats were like, yo, you should definitely come out and, do interviews and stuff at Trackside. So we're here.
Awesome.
I bought $60 worth of shit from Walmart. Gave myself a little table. Gave us all blue chairs because Sincerely Japan is a blue logo. If you're not watching this on YouTube too, you're fucking
professionals.
This
matching chairs.
Yeah, we're very professional. I thought about banners after the fact, and I should have thought about that way before the fact.
Yeah.
Dude, there's some sick ass cars here though.
There is a lot of good stuff out here.
What's your favorite vehicle
Z-Gang,
that you've
right in
seen
front of me.
so
That's in
far?
front of me. Z-Gang.
Fuck out of here. Nobody gives a
Got
fuck.
DK over here.
Nobody cares about 350Zs anymore. I can't say that too loud. It's right
He stalled out. He stalled out.
there. He saw it out and then he went.
He's like, shh, don't let
Oh,
nobody
he's
know.
a little bashful.
Should we bring him over here when he's out?
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, you just stalled out. Let's put you in front of like 500 listeners.
How does that make you feel?
As I say, nobody gives a fuck about 350s.
Yeah.
And there's another Z that came through. Z Life.
Quan, do you actually like Z's or did you just get one because they're easy?
I like Z's. I actually wanted the Z. Like, so,
Did you?
like I told you, I wanted the 34 when I was younger, and then I was like, fuck, man. When the Z's came out, I was like, I really wanted the Z. So when I got the
Yeah.
34, and then once I left Japan, I was like, I gotta get a Z.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I got the Z. So I already knocked out 2 things. So
Is that a new trend?
What's a new trend?
the blinkers.
Yeah, his exhaust is covered.
Evan, you're so out of it. So Evan doesn't have a microphone, and Calvert's being a dickhead and keeping it to himself.
I want to deep throat it for you.
Yeah, I know. You can't deep throat it from your waist, motherfucker.
Little
So,
ASMR.
anyways,
Wait,
Evan,
we gotta get the guy who stalled out to come over.
ask your question again, Evan, with the microphone,
With the microphone.
with Riz.
Let me go get the guy who stalled out.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, we're gonna catch
So
him.
one of the cars that just went past, it had twin exhausts coming out the back, and it had little plates
Calvert.
welded over the end with a smiley face on one and a frowny face on the other one stamped out. I'm a little, older. I have been out of the drifting scene
Yeah, you've been
for
out.
the last like 5 years.
You've been out,
So-
my man.
But,
Join us. Hello, stall.
Sir, you stalled out.
Stall
How does that
250Z.
Nothing
Welcome.
happened right there, all right?
Welcome
The
to-
struggle is real. The struggle is
Hey,
real.
welcome to the Sincerely Japan podcast. How are you?
How are you? I'm good. I'm good.
Well,
How are y'all?
so-
My name's Eathan.
Ethan, I was
nice
just
to meet
about to ask you, man. You were off jump. So tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about your car.
So I just got it. I traded in for one of those, I guess.
What's that? A 180? 240?
240. I had
Yeah,
a 240 at first. Then I bought a 3. Then I sold it because that thing was shit. That thing was so bad. And then I bought the
Typical S
350Z.
Like most S13s, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How is the 350Z compared to the S chassis?
I love it.
Yeah?
So much better.
Hell yeah.
Horrendously better.
Okay, I was just talking because he's got one too, and he was like, "Hey, Z gang," and I've never driven
Bro,
one.
I hated on the Z's, but now I joined them. I joined the dark side.
There it is. See?
Hell yeah.
We converted.
I've never drifted a Z, but
Dude.
I've autocrossed one. So
It's so easy to drift the Z too.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is just turn the wheel and then gas it and then it slides.
Have you been around Knuckle Up for a while now?
No.
No?
I just started drifting actually.
No
Okay,
way.
Awesome,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
How
new.
did that go? Because it's like an application process to get in, right?
Yeah, so I'm not drifting at this event. I don't think so. So, but I started drifting when I was like probably like 16, 15, I think. And then I just went from there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like I
Nice.
drifted his car at first.
Okay. Oh.
What is it? What do you drive? What's that? A vet?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See,
Nah. A lot of action happening off mic right now.
told you Z gang.
Oh yeah,
it is
I
Z-gang for
actually
sure.
crashed his car.
Nothing's worse than crashing somebody else's car, bro.
Okay, I crashed both of his cars. Both of his cars. So he has a 350Z as well, and I crashed that one into
Yo,
a
he's a
tire
nice
wall.
he's a nice cat to be letting you drive two
Dude,
cars
Dude,
after the wreck.
He's the real
way
DK.
Too nice. I don't know how he lets me get away with this. I want to like pay him back and stuff, but like
you gotta learn somewhere, right?
Yeah,
That's
is
right.
true.
That's right. Hell
now
yeah,
I got
dude.
that thing. So
That's awesome,
I'm
bro.
gonna get rowdy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely, yeah.
I wish I could drift at this event, but I'm not good enough yet. But I
I
want
get
to
it.
get there one day.
I get it. It's either you're not good enough or your car doesn't look good enough. It's one of the two.
I
What?
hope it looks
Dude,
good enough though.
it does. You're right. You're right. All right, brother. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate
you
it.
coming on. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Nice to meet you. What's
Take
your
it easy,
podcast
bro.
name?
Sincerely Japan.
All right, yeah. I'm gonna watch that.
Take it easy, guys. Take care.
Z gang, I told you, bro.
Z gang,
I
bro.
told you.
He was so hype. I'm about
Yeah,
it.
I've autocrossed.
Oh, I told it to him.
Okay, cool.
Sincerely Japan. Tag us. It's called Sincerely Japan. We're on Instagram. It's Sincerely Japan Podcast. Sincerely Japan Podcast. Yeah, if you took a picture, you should tag us. I would love you forever. That would be incredible.
We truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Trying to get the doggos to come over.
Yeah, Z gang. dude.
I told you.
Oh yeah.
Z gang. I told you. Don't mess with the Z gang, bro.
No, and he was so hype on it too.
Fact.
I
I
don't
keep
know.
telling you, man.
Kind of cap that it's better than an S chassis. Heavy cap. No, I will say this. For anybody that's listening that has a Z, I feel like the Z is a more modern chassis,
Yes,
and so it probably does handle better.
it does. But I want to hear the buts.
I feel like the front end suspension of the S chassis is way simpler, and the ergo better.
I don't know, man.
I also don't know shit about suspension setups, so don't at me in the comments, please.
Like, yeah, you motherfucker.
That's a spicy take to have, and then follow up with that.
I don't know shit.
Exactly, because that's my getaway tactic. Is like, oh, also I don't know anything, so don't take me seriously. But we're talking about, you've been out of the game for a minute.
Yeah.
We were walking in, and Evan was like, "Is that a drag wing on an S chassis?" And I was like, "Dog, that's been around for like 3 years now." He was like,
"What?"
"No way." And then we're sitting here, and he didn't have the mic at the time, and there was a 370 that pulled up. And the 370 had blinking taillights, and he was like,
No. It wasn't the blinking taillights.
The reverse?
No. He had twin pipe exhaust on one side, right? Mm-hmm. And then over the end of each of the exhaust pipes was a flat plate welded on with a smiley face cut into the plate on one and a frowny face on the other.
Oh.
Like an exhaust restrictor almost.
I thought you were saying, like, do people...
Oh, no. The blinky taillights, I know about that. But yes,
So
I have
I'm
been
not
out of
that
the
far
game
out the
for a
game.
good while. I've been out of the game for a good 5 years.
Is ever a good idea?
You said restricting is not a good idea?
No.
No.
Why would you want to do that?
Maybe, but what if you have something cut out before the exit? It could just be for show.
That is possible.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a
No,
good
that
point.
is absolutely possible.
We could have it dumping like right after the manifold. Or
True.
right after, basically where the cats would go.
That'd be weird, though, right? To dump it in the bay, but still have an exhaust out the bumper. But I will say this, dude. We've never talked about this. If you have a side exit or just a dump pipe in the engine bay, I hate that there's nothing at the back bumper if there's a cutout for the muffler.
Yeah, it is weird if there's a cutout.
I don't like that shit.
If there is a cutout there that doesn't have something in it, I feel that it looks weird.
Yeah.
It just
Typically
messes with your OCD.
Yeah, no, it does. It straight up
Like,
does
seriously,
for me.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
there is something supposed to be there. It's like
Exactly.
you being a
And there's
car
not.
guy.
Yeah.
It's like if you had two cutouts and you only had a single side or a single exit exhaust,
Yeah.
and you're like, why is there two cutouts? I
Right.
need to get an aftermarket exhaust that has two.
That's
in a case
OCD.
like that, I would typically even prefer to just run a full cut bumper, like cut up and then just clean it out, as
True. Is
opposed
that-
to just having the visual reminder that something isn't there.
Is that cleaner?
For me, it is, especially if you're running a rear bash bar or a rear jack point,
Yeah.
and you can actually paint it and make it look nice and have it be part of the car's aesthetic. I think it looks better.
True.
Kind of like his front bumper.
And we're talking like everything's off camera. I feel bad; these guys can't see anything we're talking about.
We'll just set the.
Well, you know
we'll
what? I'll
take
take a picture of him,
Pictures.
or
Yeah,
I'll tag him in the Instagram, and I'll put his Instagram up.
Yeah, for
There you
reference,
go.
I was just pointing at the car of the kid who was just here interviewing, so we'll post pictures of it.
Yeah.
Enter picture.
It is a
now.
nice 350Z.
It is, and I feel like
It
it's,
looks better than mine.
It does. It's like the average Z missile enjoyer.
Yes,
You know, it's
definitely.
And they're not bad cars to start with. I mean,
They're-
so long as you get the cooling.
And the fucking
Straightened away.
oil and the oil consumption.
but that's a different beast.
Just a lot more moving parts.
Oil, man.
Quan had oil spills, and then he's like, "Man, I got to put a whole other motor in this," and they put a 2J, and he
fuck-
still had oil problems.
Because me being a dumbass.
See, that's why I'm just doing a fresh oil system up front on the 2J. I'm putting in the Mark III.
Yeah,
Just gonna cut to the chase.
Facts.
yeah. Wow, we went off on a tangent there. I really didn't expect to be pulling people to come into the podcast,
But we did it.
but that one, he just had so much personality, and
It's not a bad idea. I like it.
It
that
was
was good.
really endearing.
It's fresh.
It was fresh.
He's
and
somebody that's newer to the scene, so it's nice to get somebody new's
Yeah.
perspective,
You're facts.
especially for people that have been around for so long, like myself and the three of you.
yeah.
Also, somebody who's ran his car into the wall and somebody's bought him new cars, which is
Dude,
great.
if
I was like,
somebody
I wish.
if somebody crashed my car once, I'd be like, "You're cut off." Like not we're not friends anymore. What? Did I crash your car?
No, remember that one dude in Japan, bro?
I think we talked about this already. I did crash somebody else's car. And I didn't drive his shit again, dude. I was done. But I'm saying
That's it. You're cut off.
I'm saying though, I did. I crashed it. Okay, so hear me out. So we're at MSP, right? And
You owe me
he-
a 10-second car.
and He had this was like a 15-second car. So he had an R33
Yeah.
4-door turbo manual, right? So at MSP, there's a wall run, if you will. It's kind of a manji, but kind of not. So you come into the wall, and then you manji around like a real wide turn, and then you hit the first apex, which is like what they used to run D1 at. So anyways, coming into the wall, and his car is like normal ride height, but it's on like really old D2 coilovers. And I specifically remember the coilovers. I don't know why. And So I'm coming in, and it's like not wanting to stay sideways. It keeps wanting to straighten up on me because the grip, I mean, it was really soft. The whole car was soft, and it made no horsepower. So it kept wanting to straighten up, and I was like, dude, just motherfucker, like, do the thing.
Just a little bit more.
And so I kept giving it gas, and then finally I'm like past the apex, still giving it gas, and it straightens out like for the wall. And me being a decent driver, I was like, oh, fuck. So then I'm slammed on the brakes, skidding towards the wall, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I can't slam on the brakes because skidding's just going to make me go straight again. So I let off the brakes, last minute turn parallel with the wall, bro. But it was just enough where the quarter went, boop, dude, I saved the nose, which I was stoked on.
Yeah, he did.
But the tail end just went, boop, and it hit the very ass end.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Take a seat.
Would you like to come on the podcast?
Mobile office.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, my dog's got to come too.
Oh, yeah.
We brought the dog.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys.
So what's your name? What do you do here?
Hey, my name is Kendra Messer. I have this nice S13 hatch. It's an SR20. I'm here drifting today. What about you guys?
That's
What's up with
awesome.
y'all?
This is it.
You're just podcasting.
Just talking to people.
Yeah, we just came to talk and watch everybody. And
Is a car-related podcast y'all's full-time gig?
It's
Okay.
called Sincerely Japan. And yeah, all of our shit's broke, so it's really just like a band of misfits.
That was me most of the year. Complete rebuild, overhaul, bunch of custom parts, new paint, whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So this is literally my second event since all these massive changes.
Nice.
And the track's really grippy today. So I was
I
like,
saw that. Yeah.
So tell me everything. So how did you get into drifting, and like how did you get in with the Knuckle Up?
Okay,
folks?
cool. So I've always been into cars like my whole life. I started off with that S14 maybe about, I want to say 12, 14 years ago. I'm actually from the Midwest originally.
What part?
Indiana particularly.
Nice.
So I came, originally came up with the Drift Indie dude. So Edgar, Derek Bianski, like things like that. So originally that was, and back then drifting was KAs and,
Right.
Everybody was kind of like at this little like airport skid pad
Right.
type thing.
Yeah.
It was still a blend of SCCA too, you know, or something like it. It was not really what it is today, obviously. So I kind of started there. I was never a drifter. I don't know why I thought women couldn't be drifters. So.
Oh, was that the perception at the time though? You were just like, I can't do this?
No, I don't even think I couldn't be like, oh, I can't. It was like, what is drifting? Like,
Right.
what is the bigger picture here? At that point, I'm like freaking 18, 17 years old, 19 years old, just trying to find your place in life.
Yeah.
I very quickly realized Indiana was not quite the place for me, so I moved to Houston for opportunities.
Yeah.
I've been here for 12 years now.
Damn.
So once I moved here, a couple years back, I started my own business. I'm actually in the apparel industry. I do a bunch of screen printing. I actually made the Knuckle Up shirts here today.
Nice.
We do digital screen printing, embroidery, print on demand, literally, you name it. We literally figure it out for you guys. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Sweet.
So maybe about 6 to 7 years ago, I still had a 240. I actually have a fully built KAT convertible that was more of a
Nice.
show car, and I
Yeah.
was doing show car things, and it has Minervas and all that. But then I think I just kind of got stuck in like a shitty SR20 and was like, here, figure it out, and because I wanted to kind of fit in with everybody else, because if you're not driving, it's pretty boring, right?
Right, right.
You're like, oh, somebody crashed, and that is the excitement for the day. So, I got stuck in a car and been trying to figure it out ever since. But this past year has been a lot of growth, development, income changes for everybody, things like that, and setting boundaries on what kind of events I want to go to, what type of people and cars I want to be around, and things like that.
Yeah.
So that really kind of shifted of quality over quantity. I think previously I was just going to as many events as possible, learning to just chase people down and not really actually learn to develop a line and understand the bro line versus you just cutting line to chase
Right.
and to tandem, right?
Yeah,
To be involved at that point. So I do a lot more single laps now. I've really developed my driving style. Completely has shifted from a year or two back where I was just trying to make it to every single event period.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
big shift, big change. We all kind of grow up at some point, and I still have my fully built KAT convertible. It sits on my car rack. I haven't done much with it, but it's something I'll just never get rid of. And then I have this over here, and I have a S14 again too.
Oh, not Koki or
also,
Zenki?
it's a Zenki, and it's also SR20 as well.
Damn.
So
Hot
I have my
boy
own little
shit.
collection.
Right on.
He's over here on
my
the
own
hot
little
boy
collection.
shit. Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty
Hell
cool.
yeah. So
Were
how
you,
did-
you guys are from this area or
San
you
Antonio.
San Antonio.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
so-
So you guys probably go to a lot of the Club Loose events that were going on over there.
Rest in peace. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. You know, and I think all good things do come to an end.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
Yeah.
and post-COVID times, everyone grew and developed, and
It is.
it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I hope there's going to be way different things coming forward.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to make it out to the karting complex there?
Yes. So I did drive one time at the karting complex. They were still trying to work out the whole parking situation, and most of us all came with trucks and trailers. So it was a little like that alone was kind of stressful, and I travel with my dogs. So yeah, and it begins.
That's okay.
So I travel a lot with my dogs, so that's always some things I always have to take into consideration as well. So
Yeah, I got you. No, I think like this is great. We've never been to Knuckle Up, so this was kind of, us wanting to come out, and then my co-host lives in Korea, so we were like, maybe I just take the podcast and do like a mobile podcast thing with it. So,
Yeah.
we're chilling.
Yeah, why
this
not?
is the first Knuckle Up for us, so
Yeah.
hopefully not the last.
Knuckle Up is cool because typically it tries to develop just, mostly 240s or Corollas, like 90s,
Right.
like 2000s nostalgia type
Yeah.
things. This is really cool because they don't really do too many 2-day events anymore, so it's actually really like worth your time coming. Plus, we're doing 10 hours of driving today, 10 hours driving tomorrow, so I
Yeah.
mean, you're almost never really stuck at grid too much until somebody
Right.
crashes.
Yeah,
So-
so much seat time. It's
Yeah.
insane. So for you, do you personally lean more towards that kind of nostalgic style of drifting, the aero specific?
For me, because I had mentioned, like, I'm trying to focus more on quality than quantity events, I try to go where I can feel most comfortable, like, learning and critiquing my driving style and getting
Got
the
it.
most seat time. Like,
Yeah.
I think one of our biggest concerns now is, like, everything's gotten a little bit more expensive. So if I'm going to pay $200 or $300 entry, I really want to make sure that, maybe I'm including traveling. I don't know if you guys have seen Mid-Pond online or anything like that. So I really like going to Mid-Pond just because of the environment. It's a little bit of a different track. You can drift all sorts of like different parts of the track. So I kind of like to travel, and that's fun. And then to also get to drive and not be so overly crowded. So more
Yeah.
private days. I do participate in the Drift Kitchen events as well, which is mostly
Nice.
like women-ran events and whatnot. So those have been fun, and same thing. It's a lot of seat time, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I like to come to Knuckle Up is you do get a lot of seat time, but you also are also driving with a lot of people who are very similar to yourself because no one here wants to total their cars or anything. So everyone's being a little bit more respectful of your space and your time and how it works.
That's a really good point. I don't think a lot of people think about that in terms of like these exclusive series, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's so much invested into just like not only the time, but just the way that the car looks and everything too. It's like very different than a traditional grassroots event where it's...
I know Jimmy in the past, which is the owner of Knuckle Up, he's been a little bit more critiquey on like who can and can't, and you may even have a 240, but it's still very limited of like who can actually kind of make it, and it's no hate towards anybody like that. It's just he does want a certain environment. We want other people, or he probably wants other people on a similar like spectrum of like same driving style, not super aggressive, and like.
What do you think is your advice to somebody that's coming up that doesn't have like the money or resources of those of us that have been in this community for a long time? What would be your advice for somebody starting out that wants to do this?
So first and foremost, I would just suggest try to be involved. Try to get out there because I'm a very generous, nice person. Like I would like let people like ride in my car. Maybe not at an event, maybe particularly like this, but at fellow Women Day events, I've let in like countless people drive my car, no questions asked. At least to try to like get a feel for what a turbo car is versus a VQ car, because a lot of people just immediately get into a 350Z or a G35, which is, I've drifted one of those too. There's nothing against that, but some people just don't know any better. And unfortunately, I do think when people maybe don't have the resources, they aren't able to learn a different style, or they get into bad habits naturally without realizing you have to like, I don't know, deal with a turbo or deal with certain aftermarket performance parts as you do progress and move forward. Now, if you are just starting at like bare minimum, you're fresh out of high school or in high school and you're trying to get here, like just show up and be actually accountable for yourself and for making an appearance at events like this, because the help doesn't really go unnoticed. Jimmy is constantly looking for volunteers. I know us other, drivers could always use a helping hand, like with air pressure or like letting people give ride-alongs, or even just like holding the fort down at the tent. Nothing's worse than just like leaving all your belongings out there and there's no one, really kind of supervising or hanging out and whatnot. So I think it's important to like speak up, let people know you're interested in them or like what they offer. I don't want to say it like that, but like, hey, I love your driving style. I love how, this is what you're doing out there. I love that you have an SR20 or a KA or a 350Z or whatever. Yeah. Let people know, because we're also very busy. As drivers, we're so busy. And like, hell, I'm on a podcast right now, but you're driving, I'm dealing with my dogs. I literally just pulled out my work office because I need to do some work on the computer. So if we know like, hey, you're interested in us or interested in trying to help out or whatnot, we're definitely going to try to include you. Yeah. I've never felt like I never wanted to include someone before.
I think it can be intimidating,
but also don't be super weird.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't be like a stalker, please.
It's a fine
Female
line.
or man, please do not be a stalker.
I think it can be intimidating for newcomers sometimes, but like it really is so welcoming once you're here. And I think maybe that's like, it can be a little bit off-putting, is just being a part of a new community that you don't know necessarily. And so like, that's why it's so important, I think, that we just remind people, like, it's easy to sit at home and listen to a podcast or watch YouTubers, but really like most events, and this one especially, is just like, it's so welcoming, and everybody's so nice. And
I think a lot of people will be like, oh, like I replied to your story on Instagram, right? Because we're all like available online nowadays in modern technology. You could probably reply to my story 1,000 times, and I probably, unfortunately, I'll never put 2 and 2 together until you actually like, hey, I'm April, and I'm this and this on Instagram, and I love you, and you're great, or something like that. Like then I'd be like, oh, okay, this person's serious, because nothing online is usually real or serious, or people are kind of looking to actually like poke fun or be negative, right? So until you actually approach people in real life, it's really hard to be like, is this person actually trying to be a friend, or are they just trying to gossip about me behind the scenes?
Yeah, so it's real hard to put a username with somebody's intent.
And I think that goes in either direction, like for men, women, everything. Everyone can just get on the internet and be somebody. Yeah. But until you actually hold yourself accountable, show up, participate, make yourself involved. It's so, like I said, it's so hard for me to have people on my radar of like, oh, that's so and so.
Yeah. So you've had both. I'm going to completely shift up topics. You've had KA, you've had SR. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference between the two?
So I've never drifted a KA. A lot of some people, friends and stuff like that, they have them and they seem to be fine, And I think it's just really, I try to have all my cars matching, so then I can always like substitute parts.
Oh,
so for
nice.
me, for a driver's perspective, if something catastrophic happens to me today, I can take off like certain parts off of my other motor and just put it on there and piece it together.
Yeah.
I've also made a lot of upgrades and shifts on my car where I'm running like 350Z like axles and stub axles and axles, and not a differential yet, but coil packs, it's all starting because of getting that stuff available. Availability is huge also when you start getting into drifting, driving. Like you said, not everything is cheap anymore either,
Dealing with an older vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're trackside too, it's different. It's like, especially if you break shit here, it's like,
I can just go. Like, I just got back from New Orleans. I drove there 2 weekends ago. It might be 3 at this point. But randomly, I just got my car tuned. It's great. Everything's good. I drove, like, for a pretty good amount of time on Saturday. Next thing you know, 3 coil packs just decide to randomly die, kills all my spark plugs. I have a misfire. My car's all acting up. And I'm, like, immediately panicked, like, oh, my tune, or whatever. But, yeah, I had to go to 4 different O'Reillys. But I was able to get all my coil packs the same day. Yes, I lost out on like a couple hours of driving, but I was back in business the following day. You know? And that plays a huge role of like, some people are fearful of like, oh, I couldn't cross mingle parts, right? But if you want to get into this market and you want to get into this industry, you have to be adaptable. And I say that in your business. I say that look, you guys here, you're on a mobile podcast. Like, congrats, And if you want to be involved or relevant, you got to figure it out and be adaptable for sure.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And so really, trying to think of where to go from here. Do I want to talk about cars? Do I want to talk about business? I'm curious. I mean, just genuine curiosity. What's the furthest event that you've gone to?
Driving wise, I want to say before, like maybe like Florida or like something like that. Like physically, like driving truck and trailer because it's a long haul.
Yeah.
Like regardless.
Do you have a favorite track?
I want to say I love Mid Pond, honestly. And I drove there before I did this whole refresh, and my car was slow, and I was having so many like binding issues with my steering and stuff like that. So I didn't even feel like I got to like actually like live and drive at that track. So I'm planning on going back in February. So I'm really excited to be back with all the new stuff. So I really like there. Probably my favorite track that I've been to that I haven't really got to drive at is more of like a complex. It's a place in Connecticut. I think it's called like Thompson Speedway. I'd have to probably do a quick Google search to double check, but I think it's in like Connecticut area, but it's Thompsonville Speedway, something along those lines. And it's like drag, a road course. Just it's a gorgeous facility. Like it's massive.
I'll put it on screen for y'all listening right now.
Yeah, you have to look into it. But just to go and hang out and just be around a lot of other different varieties of auto enthusiasts. That was really cool experience. And I went when it was really cold, so I would like to go back if it's like to actually drive there.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the nice thing here is like you can just drive year round, generally speaking.
Yeah. I mean, we had like a really cold, couple weeks the other day, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've flown to go to a lot of tracks. I've helped out with back when XDC was around. I was involved in like working as like brand ambassador and stuff for some different companies then. You do the whole like Formula Drift travel plan, so you end up at a lot of places, but for me it's like the overall scenery. Like I said, I usually travel with dogs, so I kind of put all these I really liked this place in Tennessee that I used to go to. It was where Stoopy Cold used to be hosted.
Oh, yeah.
But they canceled it this year. I'm uncertain why, which is understandable. But they used to run this track that was kind of like in the far back instead of like up on it's kind of like a circle. It was like a circle track where we were drifting out last year. Mm-hmm. But they had this fourth gear course all the way in the back, and same thing. It had elevation and stuff. And man, that was, again, my car was not what it is today, but that was a really fun experience. Right. And the track is gone or like disassembled now. They're saying it's deemed unsafe and things like that, which everyone's getting higher horsepower cars, so makes sense. You don't want to fly off the cliff or whatnot, but same thing. Great environment, good people, all the host organizations and vendors that come out to things like that. Typically, I'm actually surprised this didn't commingle with like a car meet or anything like that. Have you guys heard of Clean Culture? Yeah. Okay, so I like the Clean Culture. I don't really like the whole revving thing that they do. It's a little excessive. But, I mean, the overall good, like I said, people are actually showing up and participating, and it gives like a good amount of spectators here, and it brings money for the track, like here, like speed sports, right? Because people are probably going to go ride karts. There's probably going to be more vendors. There's going to be more food trucks than just tacos, which they're great over there, but it's a trickle effect for sure. And if people aren't willing to be involved and show up, then this is a nice turnout. There's a lot of drivers, but there's really not too many spectators. Yeah. Right. Maybe tomorrow.
I was going to say, I feel like
hopefully
a weekday.
Tomorrow.
Do you feel like the driving style here, do you feel like it has a unique identity compared to most grassroots events?
Like, like Texas driving?
Well, specifically this, and I say that because of the style of car that's here. I feel like it warrants a slightly different style than something with like a huge V8 and a ton of grip.
Yeah, I mean, like any higher I know they just had Drift Week here, and there's obviously a lot of higher horsepower cars there too, and like everybody looked like they drove wonderfully, and you just have to think about things a little differently because you're gonna overextend if you don't initiate earlier than somebody who only has 200 or 300 horsepower. Right. So you as a car owner, or the build that you're creating, you need to plan accordingly. Like, okay, or I'm gonna chase down this VQ, but I'm a JZ with 600 horsepower. You as a driver really need to accommodate. I know there's a lot of people here that drive very well, significantly well, but them and maybe the 2 or 3 other people that they drive with, they have their own driving style. Right. And then myself, I'm not really big on e-brake. I use my clutch a lot more, left foot brake a lot more, and that's just because I didn't really have an e-brake when I very first started, so you kind of get some bad habits or things like that. I use it, but within reason. So I already have a different driving style with somebody else who initiates with the e-brake over there, So I think everyone has a different driving style, unless you're probably in a 350Z. Like, sorry, no offense to anybody who has 350Zs.
He's our resident
But
CEO.
I will say that people with 350Zs, you can really gang up and all drive together, because literally if, let's just say you use the same shop as another shop to build all three of y'all's cars, right? You guys get the same suspension, same coilovers. You guys are all tuned, the same style. You guys are going to drive so similarly that you could literally just play roulette and go in each other's cars. And there realistically shouldn't, besides seat placement, there's probably no differences, honestly.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing, but again, you're going to develop bad habits because that's all you know. So until you step into a different type of vehicle with A, more horsepower, B, with a turbo, something along those lines, you would probably be able to move into an LS car and not really, yes, you'd have more power, but your driving style probably wouldn't change too much. When I got into driving, or when I very first started drifting, it was just okay, I felt like I was just always trying to make it work, right? And at that time, I want to say, 6-7 years ago, I mean, people, I was broke. And the group of people I was around, we were all equally not well off, So we were all really trying to buddy system it and figure it out. And, there was 8 of us shoved into hotel rooms and the whole thing, There I was one responsible person, AKA mostly me, and everybody else was there figuring it out. But it was such a really interesting time period, And then if you fast forward into even these past 4 years, the year before COVID, and when FD and all the YouTube money and the big name people, coming from overseas and stuff, that to me is really where the change of drifting kind of really was getting so publicized. It's online.
Yeah.
The access is different. The people availability of access, car builders, just a lot of people, I mean, including myself, so I don't want to take blame, but I'm not very mechanically inclined. I can tell you what I'm experiencing and what I don't like and what I think needs to change, but I can't get over there and figure it out. So, such a demand for people with that knowledge increased these past 4 to 5 years. And then I feel our inner circle at that time, everybody started making good money, and we were all trying to figure out, we were getting older, we were realizing, okay, you have to have a hustle culture, right?
Right.
So even now, this past year or two, that's gone away completely. God forbid if somebody knew I was working right now, they would be like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, I'm sorry, but deep in my soul, I hustle. I work really hard.
Nowadays, people are just so used to it.
Yeah, it's really changed. So, but then you see the same type of people though. So these newer people who are still 18, 19, who are now getting into it, which again, I want those people to be involved, but you need to realize that also a lot of people who've been in the scene for a long time, we really had to struggle.
Yeah.
We really did.
We were making $6-7 an hour, right?
Right.
I mean, right now minimum wage is still $7 an hour, but minimum wage when you walk into a place, you're getting 14 off the bat, right?
I think it's all scalable though, because think about how expensive cars have gotten too.
Yeah.
240s used to be
Cars
half the
and
cost.
also even rent.
Yeah.
Even when I got out of the military in 2010, 2011, I was only paying $400 and something a month for
Dog, where were
a
you
small
living?
apartment.
Where?
San Antonio.
That explains it. Okay.
Yeah, I was in San Antonio
Say
paying
less.
$4 something for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, but that's so totally believable. And so here in Houston, you could maybe still find some, it might be in the ghetto, but you probably won't get shot or anything. But there are some places that are probably around $650, $700, all inclusive, right? And but if all you care about is sleeping somewhere, you work 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and you want to build a car, then who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be oh, I didn't, because I have, but that's where I think a lot of people are having that disconnect more recently.
I will say one thing though.
Oh.
Whenever you do
Calvert
find a
popped in.
place that's super cheap in rent,
Yeah.
then it's probably going to be in the ghetto. And if you're building a car, you might come home one day and your car or all your parts are gone.
You
And
gotta
then
have
we're
a backup
crap.
of a storage or at
got
your
to.
work.
Get
I mean, if you do have a cheaper house and you can't afford $100 a month for storage unit,
You gotta have the trap house.
but I would still rather have my baby in my house.
Yeah, I think, and I think things are obtainable. So I'm a big finance nerd, so I could go all day about all of this stuff. Things are obtainable, but people do choose to like buy things
100%.
irresponsibly.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You need to
y'all don't know me
prioritize.
from Adam, but I randomly posted like on my Instagram yesterday that Stanley Cup was offering like a deal, right? And this cup, a freaking just a stainless steel tumbler cup that's been around for decades, right? They're selling this thing for $60 because of a name. And want to look around and maybe figure out how many people have a $60 Stanley Cup because it's a lot.
Right.
And you're telling me what's wrong with the $10 stainless steel cup from H-E-B?
Yeah.
So
Right.
things are obtainable, but people value brand name or things like that differently than other people. And you know, there's nothing wrong with either side. You can be bougie, that's wonderful, and you can choose not to be, and you know, be able to like save money or invest and get different parts as you like get older and stuff like that. Or,
And
so
I think
it's a whole whirlwind of like rationalization and figuring out the type of person and setting boundaries and
Right.
who you want to be, right?
And I feel like too, that's kind of a part of life too, is like when you're young, you're still figuring shit out, you know, and it's like you're kind of young, stupid, broke. Like I feel like everybody goes through that phase.
Yep.
And then when you hit like your late 20s, 30s, it's like you kind of have your life figured out, and
I'm
it
just
gets
like
a lot
at 18
easier.
there was no $60 Stanley Cup, rest assured. You know,
Right.
like
You're really
I'm
hell-bent on
32.
these Stanley
I'm upset about it. Like, but it's not just that. There's a trickle effect, you know. But I'm like, we didn't. The internet was like, you know, I look back at 2008. Like the internet wasn't really like it is now. I always make this joke where I had to find all my information on forums, and I had to figure out about car meets and if somebody got into a car accident or somebody got pulled over by the police. It was all in the forums, right? We didn't have. We barely had Facebook, you know, but I mean, we barely even had MySpace. And even so, you had to wait for your dial-up or your cell phone. You had maybe like 1 gigabyte of internet accessible, and you had to save that for text messaging at that time, you know? So, you know, in 2008 doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was that long ago. And then now you're like unlimited Netflix, unlimited YouTube, unlimited everything all the time. So that's why I'm hostile about the Stanley Cup.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like for me, in San Antonio, there was the forum, San Antonio Imports, and one of my buddies, Skunk, he runs it. But that used to be the place to go for info. And then, but something else that you touched on earlier. One thing, and this is not I'm so pissed about the new generation has it better. I'm very thankful for the new generation.
I'm thankful
of
for it
drifters.
every day.
Just the accessibility of car culture in general, but specifically drifting. Like for all of us when we were younger, especially if we grew up in a rural area, if we didn't have the ability to like do an alignment ourselves and we tried to take our car into a shop and tell them, hey, I want it aligned this way, they'd look at us, tell us that we were crazy and it was unsafe, and they'd kick us out.
Yep, correct.
There was absolutely no help, no nothing. And
even like Discount Tire, like now, right? They won't even mount a lot of tires and stuff. I mean, hell, they won't even rotate my truck tires the other day because they're bigger than stock. And I'm like, what world do we live in?
Yeah.
Like, they're
Yeah,
that
like this
big.
is easy. This is so easy. Please help.
And nowadays, there's such a wide range of shops that are tailored specifically to drifting or drifting in other types of disciplines, where we
and
can.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
like,
we can get
it's great,
support,
and everybody
we got
can share knowledge. Yep. And like you mentioned, things are accountable. So that's why I'm like, we figured it out when we had forums, but why are people not showing up more now? That's where I don't understand the disconnect, or the people are doing what's the thing where they do the
street
takeovers
takeovers?
and stuff like that. Like, why are we doing that?
We were talking about that in the car on the way over because San Antonio has a huge problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a huge problem with it.
And it killed the car meets for a good 5 years.
Yep. I even saw somebody over there in the other parking lot doing something, and I was just like, what are you doing? This isn't even your property. Go somewhere else. You know?
I will say it's really, really cool to see how many younger guys and girls are devoted to the media of this. That nothing says something is thriving more than how much media is around it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so when we were growing up, or at least for me, skate videos were the shit. And there were a bunch of local skaters and they'd all go make skate videos, and we see the same thing happening with drifting. Even if somebody can't get involved, like we were talking about earlier, they'll still show up as media with a camera. I mean, shit, there's a guy I'm going to talk to today with a VHS camera, $60, and you make a really badass.
But I mean, even just on your cell phone or
Exactly.
something. I mean, even if you let's just say you're really down and out and you don't even have internet right now, right? You're rough infinite. But you can still take media footage, upload it when you do have access to the internet, and like
Right.
it is still appreciated from all of us, or it shows that you're trying to be involved to that extent.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think you have to be a professional. Like, you don't have to be a professional driver to show up here. You don't got to be a professional media person to show up here. And that's the really cool thing about motorsports.
Yeah.
Like lately.
Oh yeah,
So-
it welcomes anybody with open arms, so long as you're applying yourself.
Yep.
And not shitty.
Yeah, and
not being
not
weird.
out to ruin it for everybody else.
being
Like, not
weird,
being
yeah.
weird,
Those people get weeded out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Or they find their own clique and they can fuck off.
So, I mean, drifting now has been really like about 15 years probably in the U.S., right?
Yep.
And so where do you think we go from here?
Man, I ask myself that all the time.
Right.
I own a small business, and every year, we've grown, we develop, we get new employees, we're hitting goals, we're hitting numbers, right? And so this year, I'm going into my 5th year of owning this business, a successful business, which I'm so appreciative of. But so I already asked myself, okay, where do I go from here? Where do you go from here? And I say that all the time about cars, and I'm like, where do I go from here, right? And I always have this running joke. I bought a crap load of tires at the beginning of this year, and I'm like, whenever all those tires are gone, that's it. I'm gonna retire and be done, because I'm just so that really fine line of do you find value in this, or can this motorsport give you value back? And where are you gonna be later?
Yeah.
Can you make a business from this? And sure, I get to do the Knuckle Up shirts, or I have got to do the Knuckle Up shirts, but it's not a forever thing.
Right.
Jimmy could choose somebody else, or the events could get postponed or canceled, or who knows, So I mean, I can't rely on that. And then I always have to rationalize, okay, if this event wasn't going on, I wouldn't be driving this weekend. Would I probably be looking for another place to be driving at, or making a plan for later? Sure. But I always had thought, a couple years ago when I very first started driving, I really wanted to develop into Pro-Am and maybe get into not FD, but what's a Pro Spec. Oh, now it's called Pro Spec, but it was also FD at that time, right? And I thought it was so cool, and even then 400 horsepower, 500 horsepower was still you could probably figure it out. You might not do well, but you could at least show up and be there, right?
Yeah,
and
the bottom rung of competitive.
Yeah, and I think showing up is just as important, if not most important, in any of these series than not showing up. Even if my car was broke, I would have been here, I have been all year. I try to come, hang out with people, try to help encourage, ride in people's cars, try to give positive feedback, or sometimes it's unfortunately negative feedback.
Yeah.
But it's about how do you move forward from that.
Right.
And then now I'm 400 horsepower definitely isn't obtainable in FD. I don't have the money for that. So,
yeah.
I don't know, and I think FD is just going to keep blowing up, and they're already, next season they're already doing stuff, and what's up?
His FD's about to blow up. I think that's why he's looking like that.
Oh, man,
His FD blew up already, but that's a different FD. I think for me, when I think about where we're going to be, is thinking about where we were in 2005 is where Japan was in 95, 92. You know what I mean? Real early days. And they're still going strong, but it is really heavily grassroots. It is capped.
I want to say that I love so I have all of my stuff is Kaguchi power. So I like modernizing the Japanese culture in my own way, which I think is okay. It's everybody has different styles, but they've really they try to keep everybody on a small tire, and everyone's cars are kind of a little bit beat up here and there, and no one's running an obnoxious tune or turbo or anything like that. So relatively everyone is on the same playing field. Very similar to what I mentioned about the VQ stuff. You and a group of buddies all can get VQs. You all can go for freaking hours, days, years doing the same thing over and over again. But I also feel the Japanese culture, people aren't purposely crashing into each other.
Right.
I don't know how much drifting you guys kind of keep up to, but you kind of notice that a lot of people are pressing indoors almost every single event
100%,
lately, and
Yeah.
it's so expensive and costly, and if you aren't able to keep up with that, it immediately burns you out.
Yeah.
You will immediately not want to go to the event ever again.
Yeah, it's going to
because
suck the fun right out of it for you.
It does. And people who have more resources probably don't think about that as much.
I can still hear you fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you're good.
So that's good. So people probably just don't think about that as much, is that we don't all have it the same way.
Yeah.
And I like the Japanese drifting style and the track days, because you're there for 10 plus hours sometimes,
Yeah.
like, and no one's crashing unless you almost crash yours. 9 times out of 10, people when they're crashing, it's literally because they're crashing themselves.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not because
yes.
the tandem accidents, surprisingly.
Yeah. I just think it's nice to see because they still have such a good community over there. But the key difference, I think, too, is that they have dedicated tracks that we don't. You know, a lot of us do stuff like this, or you have a circle track, or like there's very few that are dedicated for drifting unless it's like Park or Villains, or you know what I mean? Like some of these, I know Mid Pond does a ton of drifting.
Yep.
And so I feel like theirs, it's like, well, we have this track, what are we going to do with it? And there's still folks that drift, and so it keeps it alive. And here it's like, I think it's a big question mark because it's like they could get tired of us tomorrow. Not saying they will, but
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to say. And
Luckily,
I think
this is a kart track, so I mostly do go-karting,
Right.
you know, and I
Yeah.
think that's the same thing with San Antonio. It's always good to have a plan B, right?
Yeah.
And that, just like I mentioned in my business, like it's so good to have a plan B because nothing is forever. You can't figure it out. But recently, with as many tracks that have been closing down and shutting down in Texas, it is really nice to have the opportunity of having this in my backyard,
Yeah.
you know, being able to come here almost once a month if I wanted to. You know, whenever Knuckle Up chooses to run events, and then if not, you know, sometimes I miss events because we travel, you know, and
Yeah.
that happens like that too. But I wish I knew the answer of what comes next because
Right.
it is literally something I think about all the time.
Oh, I do
Like,
too. I mean,
For the last what about 2 years now, Jared and I were actually looking into the financials of the possibility of standing up our own dedicated drift track, a little bit wider than most of the kart tracks that we have here in Texas, and something that we can have
I
open,
think just wider on the
dedicated.
initiation points or
Yeah.
like deep. When people tandem, you need to run the bro line.
Yes.
Just a little couple extra footage on you know, probably find 2 courses you could run, and yeah, I think
Yeah.
that would be completely.
but it's also, it's like 600 Gs.
Oh, I
for-
know.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? It's like, it's
it was
not a
just
cheap
prohibitively
endeavor.
expensive to try and lay new asphalt.
Yeah.
Like we looked into it, and for something even the size of like Pat's Acres up in was it Oregon, Washington State?
Washington.
Did you guys see that Cam's Acres was for sale? You guys can move to Oklahoma.
I saw that. I wish.
It's got
Beautiful
seasons up there.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's got seasons
No
up
shame.
there.
No.
It
Okay.
has
I
that
shall
white,
take that back.
stuff that lands on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
people.
That's why I love Houston, man. It gets a little cold, but we don't have seasons very often here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even for a decently wide track to allow for a smooth tandem and only like a quarter mile in total length, we were looking at like a mil and a half for land
Easily.
plus asphalt plus just basic.
And then you have to have insurance.
buildings.
You know, you guys want to protect yourselves, and
Yeah.
next thing you know,
Right.
you're like, okay, we have to have a plan B. So what else are you guys gonna do? You guys gonna have an alignment shop or a
Right.
performance shop? You know, then okay, great. You guys aren't gonna want to do that. You're gonna have to bring in knowledgeable people. Guess what? That costs
Exactly.
money. You know, it's a big trickle effect.
And it's-
and anything that we choose to do going forward from here, because the cost of everything has skyrocketed, and existing is expensive. And then to maintain a motorsport style like this, even drag or anything is so expensive.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, and we see
definitely.
what's happening with drag racing too. It's like drag strips are shutting down left and right.
San Antonio
And
Raceway
it
shut
pushes more people to do, unfortunately, the takeover stuff,
Yeah.
which leads into a bad example for the new faces in this industry or the older crowd who, you know, when I told my grandparents back in the day, oh, I love 240s and I love this car stuff and my friends do this drifting thing, they were like, what? You know, because in their generation, you didn't really have a hobby like that. You know, this was absurd to them.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah, it's a waste. Exactly. And like
You're literally
my grandparents are
burning
like
tires.
we're traditional Catholic, you know, and things like that. But I mean, they didn't have that kind of luxury.
Yeah.
This was
Right.
this was a luxury, you know,
Right.
and even though it cost us an arm and a leg, but people doing something that's out of the norm, we almost just throw it away. Like, oh, we're just gonna go drifting, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, it's a big deal. Like we are all going drifting.
Yeah.
Pro tip, kids: if you have a local track like this or something like that, please support them. Otherwise, it's going to go away, and it's going to be really, really hard to get another one.
That's very true. That's a
Please
good point.
pay your track entry. Please bring a friend. So
Bring a
even
friend,
in
buy
my
some
business, I tell
merch.
people like bring a friend. Like I love giving. We do community days, and I give away a lot of free stuff. And I'm always just like, next time you think of me, just bring a friend.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it takes is like that extra $20. I don't know how much entry is. I think it's $20.
Yeah,
you know,
it
but
is.
that extra.
We found out.
Yeah, we'll all find out. But I mean, that little extra bump in like helping, you know, like I said, bring vendors, bring people, and boost T-shirt sales. It helps other businesses, And, you know, sometimes, like I said, if money, you're just not, you know, at least if maybe you can make it into the gate and you can take media or take some pictures or go try to support your, like, local favorites or whatnot, it really does mean a lot to everybody.
Spread awareness.
Sure. Yep.
Everything
Spread
you can.
awareness.
Pamphlets.
Oh, for sure.
Print pamphlets. Go door to
Positive
door.
awareness.
Yes. Speak up when someone's not doing something that's like not okay. And I think people get so scared about offending people or whatnot. But I mean, if you see someone hanging out of a car or like not wearing their seatbelt or helmet on track or just doing something reckless, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to speak up, and like you should, like because it promotes good situations like this, like a very nice stable environment to be at for sure.
Yeah, it makes it to where track owners are going to be more readily
Willing
accepting
to
of
let
us
us
coming
out.
in and taking over their track for the day or a weekend.
I was gonna say we probably got really far away from your podcast.
Oh, you're good.
But
Hey,
I hope
no,
this was
I'm
I'm gonna
informative.
catch you later.
It's about everything. Don't worry.
Okay, good. I was like, this is about being informative. So, and I think people resort to the internet so much, and they just see what's trendy, right?
Right.
You just see like the thing with the most views, the most likes, the popularity, the cool stunt, and people don't realize you need to have like empathy behind there, all of that, right?
Yeah.
There's somebody who's worked 15 hours last night trying to get their car ready for today, and they may only have 50 followers on their account or whatever. Does not mean that they are any less worthy than somebody who has the million followers or whatnot.
And I feel like social media is almost feeling like this really apathetic culture too. Like, not entirely, and I'm not trying to shit on social media, but I think social media makes everything so passive and so apathetic where like you just don't give a shit, you know? And it's like somebody says something mean and it's just like, oh, whatever, and I'm not going to listen to that because I don't agree with it.
It's also two-edged
It's really
sword.
easy.
Because could you imagine if when we were in high school or fresh out of high school, if we had the social media awareness and visibility of something like the drift scene now, back then, where we could actually see it, we could see that there were other people elsewhere that were into it.
Yeah, forums were
I think
about
it might have affected me and you a little bit more because we grew up in a rural area where we were seen as
we went to the same car meet in the freaking Aaron's parking lot every Tuesday for freaking 3 years because you didn't know any better. You know?
It was like four people in a Sonic.
That was where everybody was going.
Yeah. It was still very segmented too because forums were great, but it was like, oh, there's 2 people in this forum from Virginia. You know what I mean? And it was like, it was really hard to build a community out of that, I think.
Like you said, like social media, just like you could put all the content out there, you know, you create something new that no one else has done before, and people just want to be negative or something. I know it's tough for you to be like, oh yeah, like just ignore it, but also like it hurts your feelings.
It does.
And it hurts other people's feelings, like, and then it makes me as like a car enthusiast, who I've been in a car enthusiast since, like I said, 2007, 2008 era, and I'm like, now I'm much older and I'm straight up like, I do not care. I would do whatever I want. Like,
well, it's really easy when you're not face to face to say something mean or just post something mean because it's like you're not there with that person, and you can just like post, walk away, you know, and then that's like not part of your life anymore. And so it's totally different.
I feel like more people should consider, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all, you know.
Right.
Yeah, there's no consideration for the impact of what they're saying, be it positive or negative.
And I'm not saying everyone's ideas are perfect, you know, so I also want to be like, you know, if the common consensus is all discouraging an action or a thing that you're doing, probably you're really not making a good decision at that point, you know? So you should really maybe reconsider or find a different solution to the problem, you know? So I hate to be like, oh, everybody shouldn't be negative. No, there's negative within reason for sure. But if you just have one person or 2 people, then it's just there.
Right. There's a difference between negativity and feedback.
Yes.
For those on the audio-only podcast, we've been chilling with 2 dogs this whole interview, basically. Give us some background.
Super cute.
What are your dogs' names?
This is Alexis.
Okay.
She's my eldest. She is going on 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And then the Rottweiler Collie mix is Turbo. He is very chatty sometimes. As he's gotten a little older, he tells you all about his day.
Aww.
Nice.
And he's 4.
And you take these guys everywhere.
They come to work with me every day. We go to the bars. We do everything together.
They're so good. They're so good for us.
I always joke that I want to get my pilot's license so I could fly, like rent a plane to fly so they could come with me more places.
Right.
So fun. I'm actually getting my commercial pilot's license this upcoming year.
Oh, congrats. How was it hard?
No, I'm still working on it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going to be working on it starting in like January, February.
Okay.
My girlfriend and I are in the process of moving from San Antonio to Biloxi.
Okay.
So
I
you'll probably
love
see me at the
Biloxi.
NOLA.
I'm yelling in the mic. I
It's
love
really
Biloxi.
nice.
I want to move there.
We
so
bought a
bad.
house out there. I still have yet to find out what the car scene is like
Sincerely
over there
Japan,
outside
the
of the
Biloxi podcast.
retirees with their muscle cars.
Okay.
I haven't found any Facebook
It's
groups
so
yet
this
for
whole
drifting.
park
quiet and chill
Cutting
over
all this shit.
there,
I
and
don't give a
just
fuck about
like.
Biloxi.
We're over
I'm
in
gonna leave it
Ocean
in.
Springs.
Actually,
Yeah.
there
Oh,
is.
okay.
Leave
I
this in.
stayed
I'm
over
gonna trash
there.
talk
Quiet.
Biloxi. to
I
all
went
of
to.
our
I
listeners.
stayed recently over there in like
shit.
Gautier,
Okay,
which
yep.
is like
They're
on
having their
opposite
whole
side of Ocean
conversation.
Springs,
Juan
so a
and I are
little
the
bit
only
further
ones with
over. But
headphones, so
Yeah.
pretty much every time,
sharing
anytime I
thoughts
have to
to
go
each
to
other.
Georgia, Atlanta, or something like that, and come back from Florida, I almost always try to stop in Biloxi because they're actually very dog friendly there and everything too.
Very. I'm very happy because it looks like I'm going to be about 2 hours from NOLA or No
Yep.
Drift and 2 hours from Clutch Kickers
Oh,
out
good.
in
So
Florida.
No Drift is fun. They only have the skid pad right now, but I mean, it's still fun. Like you get so much seat time. Like I was so exhausted.
I've got a Mark III Super that I need to finish building for that.
Yeah, it's good. They're good people. So,
Oh yeah. All right.
but that's good.
We're gonna wrap this up.
Alrighty.
Tell people where they can find you, what you got going on.
All right. Well, you can find my business at Culture Apparel Studio, and then you can find myself, Basic Mess, and it's BAESIKMESS. And yeah, if you can find me mostly on Instagram, and that's really TikTok. I don't know.
Awesome.
Whatever the cool kids do nowadays.
I really need to get on actually using Instagram nowadays. I have an account plus a
live on
page
there.
for my
I
motorsport stuff, and I haven't been using it.
No,
I don't
use it
know.
all
I
the
kind of
time.
just stopped with Instagram. Like I'll post like stories, but actually like posting on my feed and stuff. Like I'm obsessed with TikTok. That's my guilty pleasure of
Yes.
existing,
It's so
is
easy to get
TikTok.
sucked in.
I took some videos earlier that I'm probably going to post just like,
Yeah, and it's just like you can shit post on TikTok. I think that's why I like it. Just
Exactly.
like-
Well, that's what I do with stories too. I'll sit there and do stories
it's
all
just
day.
short form Reddit.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah,
So,
but I love TikTok. You get to do DIYs and all that. So
Nice.
thank you guys so much.
Absolutely.
I know I popped in here.
No,
so
thanks.
I
That's
didn't
why
get to
we're here.
talk,
By.
so Thank you for having. I hope tomorrow it should be a gorgeous day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So hopefully
go.
interview some other drivers and stuff like that. So
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.